This is what I live for.
Please note, the contents of this video do not constitute advice or suggestions that you should dumpster dive. Please remember that I am a crusty garbage creature. This video is not advice or a recommendation. Dumpster diving is risky if you don't know what you're doing, and you should be well informed about the risks. Dumpster at your own peril. I don't know about you guys, but I despise the grocery store. The fluorescent lighting, the carbon emissions, the fact that I'm supposed to pay for things, all of it. It's gross. But I didn't always feel this way. A couple years ago, I embarked on a bit of an experimental lifestyle. I didn't have a job, and the prospects for gainful employment that didn't also involve dying a little bit on a daily basis were basically non-existent. I had just enough money to pay rent for a few months, and at the time, that was all I needed. I just wanted to write and record weird metal albums all day, grow mushrooms and plant trees in my house, and not be bothered with stupid jobs that I didn't care about. And what was the paradigm-shifting realization that made all this possible? The realization that the lowly, humble dumpster is actually an all-providing goddess of abundance and sustenance, if you only know where to look. Also at the time, I played drums in a totally rockin' band, and we had a song about dumpster diving, and my bandmates were also my dumpster mates. So, you know what the theme music to these dumpster diving vids is about to be. So chances are you've heard of dumpster diving before. You might think it's giga gross, and that's fine. Or maybe you're dumpster curious. Or maybe you have no idea what I'm talking about. In brief, dumpster diving is when a loyal disciple of the dumpsterian god queen, like myself, jumps into one of these holy repositories of corporate waste and extracts the riches within. Starting with the facts, food waste is a serious problem across the world, especially in the US, where Americans throw away between 30 to 40% of the food we produce every year. According to the FDA, if you consider all food waste to be one category, it represents the greatest proportion of general shit that goes into the landfill. This is obviously bad for a lot of reasons, because, people need food to live, and it takes a lot of resources to produce all this food, and there are literally food insecure people in this country. Which country? The country of Hungary. But also, food waste is a global warming issue, because all of our food waste decaying in the anaerobic conditions of landfills releases methane, which is a greenhouse gas about 25 times more powerful than CO2. The agricultural industries and related food industries via commercial refrigerants, soil emissions, etc., also release a fuck ton of greenhouse gases. So the act of tossing the product of such a carbon-intensive system into a landfill so it can then release more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere is just, a big dumb problem. Dumpster diving for all or most of your food is the bee's knees for a few reasons, which we'll get into. But it's also not for everyone, and that's fine. First off, and rather obviously, it's not for the squeamish. If you're easily grossed out by things or you're germophobic, dumpster diving is probably going to be your worst nightmare. Second, you have to be physically capable of entering and exiting the dumpster, and lifting and transporting occasionally heavy shit. So that's another thing. And it's definitely way more physically intensive than regular old grocery shopping. Basically, a general list of the pros and cons are as follows. Cons of dumpster diving. It's gross. Possibility of encounters with slimy, bloody meat bags. Requires you to go out at night, usually late. You have to check food quality. Way more work than grocery shopping. Potential for encounters with cops, dickhead security guards, grocery store Karens. Extra cleanup almost always required. Doesn't allow you to acquire specifically desired items. Very often leaves you with more food than you know what to do with. Not actually a con. Requires certain levels of physical fitness and ability. The pros of dumpster diving. Free food. Like a fuck ton of free food. Eliminates the moral dilemmas of the grocery store. Fights climate change. Mega abundance. You get some exercise. It's fun. You become a modern-day hunter-gatherer of the late capitalist wasteland who is bursting with sex appeal, scientifically proven. You become a loyal subject of the ever-abundant dumpster goddess. Diverse diet gives you a way to enjoy, share, and consume food that isn't monetized. If you make compost, it gives you a lot of material. Keeps money in your pocket and out of the pockets of the feudal grocery lords. It's an enjoyable group activity that you can do with your friends. Dumpster diving isn't illegal in many places, though in some places it is. So if you're thinking about doing it, make sure you acquaint yourself with your local laws before heading out. Also, like I said in the cons list, it does open you up a little bit to the possibility of encounters with the cops. So just be aware of that. Like, one time I was dumpster diving with a friend, and we were being ridiculous and loud, as usual, when we turned to see a cop creeping up on us. So we dismounted the dumpster and exited to make it clear that we weren't being sketchy. And we came out trying to look as non-threatening as possible, only to realize that we were in fact surrounded by like 5 cops, all of whom were strangely tiny little men. Disgrace to short kings everywhere. We had to do the normal song and dance, and they started asking us if we were trying to break into the grocery store, and we were like, no, obviously not. Then they checked the dumpster to see if we were hiding any bodies, while they ran our IDs. Also that night, we found like 40 bottles of kombucha, so naturally we offered them some, but they didn't want any. Then one of the cops was like, why digging in the trash, boys? You falling on hard times? And we were like, no, we're fighting climate change, which didn't really seem to register with him, but yeah. Long story short, while dumpster diving may not be illegal in many places, it does open you up to be more likely to be viewed with some suspicion, so bear that in mind. It has also happened to me many times where I'll be 3 butt cheeks deep in the dumpster, only to suddenly become aware that an unhoused person has also arrived at the spot to do some digging. But those interactions are always super chill. Dumpster etiquette is important, especially if you know that other people hit a certain spot. If you think that others will be taken from there, leave some for them. And if they arrive while you're digging, share what you found with them. The dumpster is a valuable commons for many people who can't afford to buy food, so be considerate of that. That being said, it has been my experience that there's pretty much always way more food available in the dumpsters than there are people trying to take it. Especially because most unhoused people that dumpster dive that I've seen usually only take as much as they can carry in their hands or on a bike or something. If you're driving a car and you want to take as much as possible, but you also want to be able to share with people who may need the food more than you, consider doing a community distribution point, or going somewhere that people might be willing to take some of the food off your hands and give it out. Obviously, you should vet the food first and not hand out anything that you wouldn't feel comfortable eating yourself. So be sure to do that. Which brings us to the most often asked about aspect of dumpster diving, the edibility of this trash. Most of the food that you'll find in the dumpster has expired. But if dumpster diving teaches you one thing, it's that expiration dates are bullshit. Believe it or not, we humans have evolved very keen senses to be able to tell if something is good or bad to eat. It's how we made it this far. Our ancestors weren't going around looking for expiration dates on the mammoth meat and thickets of berries that they came across. Basically, the general rule for pretty much everything is, if it looks fine and it smells fine, it's probably fine. Expiration dates are basically meaningless. Your senses will tell you what you need to know. I've been doing this for years now, and the sight and smell tests have not failed me. Also, just because something has been thrown away doesn't mean that there is necessarily a good reason for it to have been tossed. Like, if there's a pallet of a dozen bottles of juice, and one of the bottles breaks, very often the store will just toss the whole pallet, because that makes sense for some reason. Caveat alert, don't take my word for it. As I said earlier, I'm a disgusting trash person who probably shouldn't be trusted. Inform yourself and know what you're doing. When in doubt about the edibility of a food item, just toss it. The internet also has lots of tips on how to verify the edibility of particular items, so be educated and know what to look for. But start with your eyes and your nose. But the one big exception to the sight-smell rule is lettuce and bagged greens. Fuck dumpster lettuce. Don't even think about it. If you make compost, then you can compost it, but do not eat that shit. The only thing that has ever made me sick off the dumpster is lettuce. 0 out of 10, don't trust the lettuce. There are also many ways to verify if certain items are good or not. Eggs are something that I never buy in the grocery store because CAFO reasons. But there's something that I'm more than happy to take from the dumpster. Because usually when they appear in very large numbers. Almost every time I go, I find literally hundreds of eggs. But, I can hear you saying, how do you know if they're good or not? Simple. Do the water test. Just put your questionable poultry ovulations in a vessel containing water and see if they float or not. If they sink, they're fine. If they float, don't eat them. If they bob a bit or stand straight up, throw them out just to be safe. That, plus verifying upon splitting them open that they look and smell normal, and I'll scarf down them grubby dumpster huevos like a thirsty dog. So, in brief, trust your senses when it comes to verifying edibility. If you aren't sure about something, ask the internet, ask a friend, and when truly in doubt, just throw that shit out. Now, by far the most ridiculous part of the dumpster diving experience is the sheer abundance that it provides. Like, where I'm currently living is very good for the dumpstering. I've got 3 to 4 spots that I always hit when I go out. I'll usually start around 11 p.m. and stay out for a couple hours, hitting all the viable locations. I drive a minivan that pretty much always ends up chock full after a complete evening. Like, it's not an exaggeration that I will find hundreds of dollars worth of food pretty much every time. Sometimes way more than that. When I first started dumpstering, we had 2 full refrigerators, a pantry and cupboards full of snacks, half a garage full of dried and canned goods, multiple heaping compost piles, all courtesy of the dumpster. Like, all these organic goods, supplements, and fancy lotions and shit that I'd never choose to buy. But the dumpster gifts them to us. Off the top of my head, here's a tiny sample of some of the most ridiculous scores that I've gotten from the dumpster. Bank scores: 20 bottles of organic cranberry juice, 30 jars of organic almond and peanut butter, 40 cartons of almond milk, 10 bottles of organic peach juice, 60 jars of organic jam/jellies, 40 packages of organic turkey slices, 50 plus yogurts, a broken Ditting Swiss coffee grinder that we fixed and sold to a man in Texas named Muhammad, multiple still frozen organic whole chickens, like 8 whole hams, hundreds of eggs, hundreds of sparkling waters, like 20 watermelons, a small raft, lotions, moisturizers, shea butter, etc. Multiple big canisters of protein powder, a copy of the Holy Bible, 30 cans of chicken noodle soup, dozens of sticks of fancy grass-fed butter, multiple types of conventional and organic coffee, organic fruits and vegetables of all types, various vitamins and supplements, dozens of bouquets of flowers, an entire garden's worth of plants, and the list goes on and on. This list is only a tiny little taste of all the shit that I pulled from the dumpster. And it's representative of one of the beauties of dumpster diving, that it allows one to eat like a king, even if you don't have the money of one. This is especially true at a time in which we're experiencing Carter-era levels of inflation, and food prices are higher than a bunch of white women at an ayahuasca retreat. The dumpster also peels back the veil on the myths of scarcity that so thoroughly pervade our society, and reveals to you that the many advancements of our civilization have enabled boundless abundance, and tragically also boundless waste. It makes you realize that there's enough for everyone to go around, and any scarcity of food or resources is an artificial one. It also reveals the extent to which we're all just serfs to the feudal grocery lords, who could just be giving away their excesses to those that truly need them, but who instead choose to waste so much food, lest their bottom line suffer. Dumpster diving, like many types of environmental awareness, is sort of like the proverbial red pill, blue pill, or the dumpster pill. Because once you've seen the careless and wanton waste of the grocery giants, you can't unsee it. And, in my experience, it makes it really difficult to return to shopping like a normal person. But, in my opinion, that realization is a good thing. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this, I despise the grocery store. Because, as an environmentally conscious consumer, going there is always such a moral dilemma. Do I want this? What about this company? Are they bad? Oh, that's too much packaging. Is it vegan? Am I vegan? Is it vegetarian? Is there palm oil in it? How much is this all going to cost? Is it on sale? Is it organic? Am I a bad person for buying this? Who is the parent company of this brand? Am I supporting corporate greenwashing? But the dumpster eliminates all of that. You go, you find what's there, and you take it. And in my experience, pretty much always, what's there is way better than what I would buy or what I could afford. So, in this way, if you're looking for a way to eat that is a true anti-capitalist climate solution, dumpster diving is where it's at. Being vegan or vegetarian, or at least trying to reduce your meat consumption, is cool and honorable, and everyone should do it. But as long as so much of our food is being wasted, more people need to dumpster dive. I'm not a vegan or a vegetarian. I'm an opportunivore, also known as a dumpstertarian. Having extensively witnessed the true depths of our society's wastefulness, I take what I can get where I can get it. Being a trash-based dumpster diving scavenger is a way to eat that aligns with my values and worldview, while also only having to pay for the gas that it takes me to drive to the dumpster. Though someday soon it'll be in a truck that I've converted to run on vegetable oil. Dumpster diving is a community service because dumpster diving fights climate change. It's a way to basically remove yourself from the carbon-intensive grocery supply chain and instead become a carbon sink through eating their waste. This is especially true if you compost, which obviously you should if you can, but maybe dumpster diving isn't for you for whatever reason. There are still ways to eat that are good alternatives to the normal grocery store. Brands such as Misfit Market, which hasn't sponsored this video, provide a grocery delivery service of items that would otherwise have been tossed. Also, like I mentioned earlier, if you're someone who does want to dumpster dive, and if you're finding more shit than you can handle, then figure out ways to spread that abundance to the community. Set up a food pantry in your community, or get some friends together to dumpster dive and establish a communal fridge somewhere. Food should bring people together. And in my opinion, food tastes best when it's untainted by the stain of money. So share your abundance with your friends and your community. Build solidarity and fight climate change while doing it. Now go jump in that dumpster, you dirty little weirdos.